that the voting age should be lowered to 16.
Trustee? Do you want to start and then we'll go all over? Move some more?
You have to forgive my voice. I don't normally sound as sexy. I've got a bit of a thing going on with a bug, but I think the bug's winning at the moment. How can a country allow its young people to go to war at the age of 16 and not give young people the vote? If young people are responsible enough to bear arms and to put themselves in frontline positions, then surely they are responsible enough to vote. I have no idea why other political parties will not back this idea that Liberal Democrats have backed for a very long time. Probably because they think they won't get many votes out of it. There's a thing you need to know about a lot of politicians. They make decisions on the basis of how many votes is this going to win me and how many votes is this going to lose me. So it doesn't matter what the right decision is, what the right thing to do is, they will make the decision on the basis of that. Which is why I don't like politicians very much. You know, when I first ran for Mayor of London, a friend of mine phoned me up and said, does that mean that I can't believe a word you say anymore? So that's sort of what people usually think of politicians, and it's what I think of some politicians. But, so as far as voting at 16 is concerned, it's absolutely essential that young people have a say in the decisions that are going on in this country, and particularly at the moment. And I can't believe it, but Simon Hughes is walking through the door. So, you know, absolutely 100% in favour.
Brilliant, thanks. Cyril?
I totally agree, because especially in the times we're living in right now, young people are definitely affected by things that happen in the government politically, and they deserve to have the same. And I think giving them the responsibility to have a choice to vote would ensure that maybe they even take more interest in politics. So I think it's something from us.
Brilliant, thanks. And Mark, if I can pass over to you.
Yeah, sure. Well, it's something that the BYC's members vote in favour of again and again and again at our annual council meetings. Votes at 16 is, I think, for some of the reasons that Brian's outlined, a bit of a no-brainer in many ways. I've seen in my involvement with British Youth Council and other things that young people at the age of 16 have incredibly well-formed views, and yeah, there will be some who don't. There will be some who will vote on fairly shallow basis or won't vote at all, but that's the population at large, that's not young people. And actually, perhaps having those people from 16 to 18 as part of the electorate, I was talking about this with someone before we came in this evening, and yeah, that would distort the turnout figures even further. We would start to see the true picture, actually, of people who are of an age that they will be affected by the decisions that the government makes. They will be paying taxes, they will be able to go to war, as Brian pointed out. And actually, we're not getting enough of those people actively participating in politics. And that's not necessarily because they don't have views, it's not necessarily because they're not passionate and articulate. It's more likely to be because they don't have faith in parts of our political system. And maybe that would be an added impetus to reform some of the bits that our members tell us again and again they just don't think are working. So yeah, as I say, I think it's a bit of a no-brainer.
Brilliant. And Harry?
Absolutely, I totally agree with votes at 16, but as Mark sort of talks about the sort of disillusionment of young people that has got to, with lowering the voting age, we've got to deal with the problem that we don't have a decent political education in our schools, and that is something that is essential if we're going to lower the voting age, so that people do understand how politics and government work, and so that when they go to vote, they do know what they're voting for.
Yes. Simon, I guess you've picked up what the question was.
I think I worked it out. It's really good to be here. Thank you all very much for coming. Can I add a couple of points that I don't think others have made, just as a complimentary way of this one? I've been positive about votes at 16 since whenever. When I was 18, just shows how old I am, 18-year-olds didn't have votes. You had to wait till you were 21. But by the time I got to 21, they changed the age to 18, so something happened. It's passed me the other way. So my first vote was around 19 and a bit or something. And the reason I think, in addition to the other reasons it's good, firstly, at the moment, school leaving age is still 16. And therefore people can leave school at 16. If you don't immediately have the benefit of having had any education, any information when you're at school, and you then leave school, you start to get busy, you forget what the reasons were. You're busy trying to get a job or a college or whatever. So there's no continuity. The logic is that you go to school, you're taught the basics you need for life, and then you should be able to employ them. But if someone says, sorry mate, you've got to wait for 2 years until you can employ that bit of what you learn, it seems to me you've really demotivated people and the sort of information base on which people are focused on. Secondly, really following the argument, this will change a bit, of course, as the school leaving age technically rises to 17 and 18, which it's going to do. But actually, that's not an argument for changing the voting age. It's actually an argument that if we get things right and we have an education process that starts from 14 to treat people as young adults, which I hope it will do, to start giving real serious work experience and so on, then again, there are real issues for people that you might want to influence when you're 15 and 16. What should you be paid, if anything, for work experience? What about internships? What about careers advice? Do you want to have a say? Is it good enough? So, real issues that affect that transition from school to adult life. And lastly, just to endorse the point about education. We're having a big debate in government about what the curriculum should be for people at school. And obviously there are basic things you've got to have in the curriculum, like literacy, numeracy, and then maths and English and foreign language. But we absolutely need to do some other things. Financial education, so that when you come out of school, you know how to cope with banks and people hassling you for money and loans and overdrafts. We absolutely need political education. Not to make you vote, but to make you comfortable and know that actually it's dead easy and you ought to be there. So it's also part of the encouragement to make sure young people, who are often quite bright enough from 11 and 12 and 13 to talk about these things, actually are treated as full citizens as early as we can do it. 16, I think, is the consensually agreed date as to what's the right start. So we'll push for it, we'll go on pushing for it. Whether we can persuade our current coalition partners to deliver is a tricky question. But I'm hoping it will be delivered this decade, one way or another, and that anybody who is still under 18 in a couple of years' time will have a chance to vote.
I'm going to just ask you, the audience, to feedback, because I'm sure there's some of you in the audience that maybe don't take that view. It's not always the case that young people agree that votes should go at 16, and I've certainly come across a few. Anyone in the audience that doesn't agree? Yeah, right. Do you want to stand up and say your piece?
Well, yes. When I was 16, I wanted to be able to vote. But then, on the other hand, is everyone's saying that things change and people change and times change, and when will the age become that someone will then say, actually, people at 14 should be able to vote? Actually, people at... Because, yes, as you were saying, there's work experience and internships, and people have views on those. And, yes, they should be able to put their views into the government process and have their say. But there's got to be a level where someone says, actually, you're legally an adult at 18. You're legally an adult. You can go and you can do, I hate to say it, but more adult things rather than as a 16-year-old. But then, as an adult, you then have a kind of a obligation almost that you do have a say and you do have an understanding and an input, but at 16 you may not be seen as kind of ready, because you would then be, at 16 if I was to vote, my view would have been a lot different as to when my first vote was, because I was very personally influenced by a lot of things that shouldn't influence you at 16 and to vote. So.
Okay, anyone take a different view from that? Yeah.
But at the age of 16, you can pay taxes, and you're expected to pay taxes, and you can get a job, and there's a lot of things you can do at 16 that you're expected to do as an adult, and then you're not allowed the privilege of being an adult until you're 18. So you've basically got 2 years of having to pay into the government, or do stuff for the government, when the government gives you nothing back. And the government, because at the moment, they're people they're getting their votes from are older, they're not doing a lot for us because we can't vote for them. So it's surely, if they give us a vote, then we can show them what we want as a young people.
like to say something?
Sorry. I was just going to make one sentence in response to our friend in the very nice pink tie, which is this. I think everybody accepts that going from a child and a young person to an adult actually doesn't happen just at one moment. It's not an 18 or bust event. And it starts when you become a teenager, and then possibly 14, 16, and 17, and so on. And the question is, therefore, there's not a theology about it, it's what's the practical best time? And I think the young woman who just spoke made the best practical argument, which is there is a moment when you're expected or able to contribute to the funding of the state. And at that moment, it seems the contract has to be that if you're being asked to pay in potentially, then you should have a say as to where your money goes. It seems to me that that's the logic for it being then not at 14 or 15 or 17 or something like that.
See you next week.
Manchester.
Yeah. Right, come on in, my little twinkles.